Okay. So just a quick introduction for those who don't know Angela. Angela Njehia has been in operations for over 12 years. She has a lot of experience with product development, sales, and marketing. She now runs her own consultancy company called Chiranjani Africa, and they focus a lot on developing sustainable and inclusive business models. So we're very, very honored to have her here and to run the training on pricing products and services. So Angela, if you want to take the room, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Caroline, I think it's more like take the internet space nowadays, yeah? So as Caroline said, my name is Angela Njehia, and I work for Chiranjani Africa. At Chiranjani Africa, our focus is building sustainable business models for tourism businesses. This can be hotels, lodges, tour operators, airlines, destinations. So we cover a wide space in the tourism space. And today we will actually be talking about pricing products and services, but we're going to be taking a different approach, having that in the last two webinars that we've done since we started the post or these strategies that we're going through over the current period, we thought that together with the ITC team, we thought that discussing pricing and how you'll move your products after the pandemic is of importance, obviously, because one of the hit sectors is tourism and travel. So to just give you an outlook of what we'll be discussing, we'll do the usual introduction on what pricing strategies are, and I like to call it the textbook style, just to go through the types of pricing strategies, as well as move and understand what to consider when you're pricing your products, as well as understanding consumer psychology, because this relates a lot to our business when you're dealing with people, yeah? So you need to have a bit of consumer psychology, and then we look at factors that affect pricing, and then we can also look at some few trades here and there, some tricks that are used in the trade. Ideally, we want to use a different kind of approach, yeah? Basically, when you talk about pricing, you're probably thinking in terms of tour operations. You're probably thinking, how do I mark up? What is the right markup percent? Is it a commission I'm going to get from, maybe if I'm a tour operator, from the accommodation or the airlines? But basically, we decided that we all know that, yeah? And we all know how you go with your markups. But it is important for us to understand the psychology of our consumers, especially now after the pandemic, and relate to it in terms of how do we push our products out there. So if you look at, just ask yourself, what's a pricing strategy? Basically, it's just a method used to establish a price for your product. It's a process used to establish that this is the right price, yeah? Not even just the best, the right price to push my product. And then it also helps you maximize on profits, because profits, revenue margins are important when you're running a business, obviously. And also shareholder value when considering consumer and market demand. So that gives you an outline of what really a pricing strategy is. So what it basically consists of: market conditions, actions that competitors take, trade margins, consumers' ability to pay, your costs, in fixed costs, variable costs, production and distribution. So these are all the things that you should take in account when you say, I have a product, I want to move it. How, when you look at the price and you say, I have a product, I want to move it. So these are some of the things that will consist in that. So basically, as we're talking about the basis, I would like us to just remind ourselves about price elasticity in terms of demand. So basically, this is used to determine how change in price affects consumer demand. And I want to highlight that because your prices will affect the demand of your product, obviously, yeah? And I know if I take, for example, the instance in Kenya, we have various products, and we already know that even in regions, we can start saying this region is of, you know, high-end market, or this region is, so you can also see how your price, how you've put together the package or put together the area that will affect the consumer demand. So anyway, the concept of price elasticity basically helps you to understand how, if your product or service is sensitive to price fluctuations. So usually what you want is that your product to be inelastic, which basically means that it remains stable, yeah? So moving on, we will look at different types of pricing strategies. These four, the first four on the screen, are usually what we call the main four pricing strategies, yeah? So number one is premium pricing. Premium pricing is where you use a high price because of the uniqueness about your product or service. Now, this is what, you remember the last two webinars we've spoken about analyzing your business using different models. And I know Caroline and team sent out an email and exercises that you can use to analyze your business, analyze your products. So you can be able to now see, does this type of strategy work for the products I'm using? Does it, you know, because if you look at something like cruises, for example, cruises are luxurious. Everybody knows that cruises are luxurious, so the price will always be premium, yeah? So you use a high price because of the uniqueness of the product. Then there's a penetration pricing. This is a strategy used when you want to, excuse me, when you want to introduce, yeah? Introduce a product into the market. So it's a penetration strategy. So you set the price low and then you gain market share, yeah? Because now you've attracted people. Then once you've attracted the people, you slowly start moving your prices. For example, one strategy that I've seen is that when you put up a new lodge or a hotel, most of us will probably introduce the lodge at low season. When the seasonality, if you have different seasons, most of us tend to introduce it during low season so that you can test your product as well as give a price that is cheap, so that when people start coming in, you'll have feedback by the time you're moving into the peak season. So another strategy is economy pricing. Economy pricing, basically, think of when you go into a supermarket and you have to buy this for this much, like it's an economy, how do I, it's kept at a minimum, basically, yeah? But this doesn't mostly work with tourism products. Then the other one is price skimming. Here is when you have a substantial competitive advantage, yeah? So basically means that you're probably the only one. Take it in terms of tourism, and you probably have a region where you're the first to set up your product, but you can see there are other people setting it up, yeah? So at the moment you have an advantage for being the first, I mean others are coming in, yeah? So obviously the advantage will not last for long. That's why we say it's not sustainable, but it's also a strategy where you start with your prices, you charge a high price, and then slowly it reduces. So these four, premium, penetration, economy, and price strategies, price skimming strategies, sorry, are the main types of strategies that you can use when you're pricing your product. Nonetheless, there are others, and there's psychological pricing. Of course, this is used mostly with the marketing team, yeah? And they want you to respond. If you're a consumer, the idea is that you can respond emotionally rather on rational basis, yeah? For example, is when you see a tourism commercial or an advert online, and it's focusing on how kids can, you know, play and do this and that and that. So ideally, psychologically, they're playing with your emotions because probably their target market is the families, you know, or multi-generational tourism travelers. So they will play on that. Or a very simple one is when you price something and you say it's $7.99. Ideally, it's 800, yeah? But psychologically, you'll tend to think that $7.99 is cheaper than 800, yeah? Then product line pricing is when you take things from the same product. A very basic example is that, let me see, something that can easily relate to, you know, when you take a car to the car wash and then you have, and they tell you we can wash the body of the car for this much, but we can also wax and, you know, spray whatever for this much, yeah? So it's in the same line, but you put it together and use that as a strategy. The other one is the optional product pricing. This is where amounts, excuse me, this is where you are given, like if you sit here, then you'll pay extra. A good example is if you're told, maybe if you sit on the window side, if you're in an aircraft, if you're an airline and you're selling, you're a travel agent and you're selling airline tickets, and people say, check me in, and you go like, yes, we can check you in, but if we check you in for the window, it's gonna charge an extra this amount. So you give options as extras. Then the other one is captive product pricing. This is where you have compliments, yeah? I see when you build packages for honeymooners, for example, and you've got all this compliments, you know, different things, champagne when you get to the airstrip of your safari lodge, you know, bed spread with flowers and whatever you want to put in, yeah? But it's just compliments. It's not anything you do every day for every other client. Or another example could be, for example, when you buy a business class ticket and compared to an economy class ticket, business class means that you'll probably get champagne as an option, you'll get your meals with good cutlery. So that's captive, what we call captive product pricing, where there's a focus on the compliments, yeah? The other type of pricing is product bundle pricing. This usually happens with, let me say, physical goods, yeah? When you have to move old stock, which mostly doesn't happen a lot in tourism. The other one is, of course, promotional pricing. Buy one, get one free. Buy 2 nights at $800, get third night at 50% off. Those are things that we do to move our products. So another one is, of course, geographical pricing. This one as well works a lot with people who are selling, you know, physical goods. And then things such as, if you buy it in Ghana, it costs this much, but if you buy the same product in Kenya, then it will cost this much. And then the last pricing that we look at as a pricing strategy is value pricing, where the approach used is for external factors or recession. Like now you'll see when you go into supermarkets with the current situation of the economies with the pandemic, there's what you call value products, yeah? So basically that's what value pricing is. So then you think there's all these strategies. We've discussed 12 different pricing strategies, but what are the factors that affect pricing strategies? What affects how you determine the price of your product? You've developed a tour. What is that affects that price, yeah? So one of the things is cost. And when I talk of cost, I'm talking about production cost, market costs. You've got to think of costs from what your expenditure, what do you spend to develop that product, yeah? Basically, that's what it is. So there are 3 factors of production. natural resources, labor, and capital. So you have to look at those three and see where can I put my price of this product so that when I move this price, I won't be making a loss, yeah? So you have to look at your costs. The other thing you have to look at as a factor is competition. Who is your competition? What is the market? What are your competitors offering, yeah? Because you could be offering the same price. For example, if I take the instance in Kenya, there's a very popular tourist circuit that I see majority of all the tour operators offering it, yeah? And it's been offered probably since before I was born, yeah? We have the lake, then we have the safari, so then we have the beach. It's standard, yeah? So if you're offering the same thing, you have to look at what your competition is pricing. Then of course, government regulations, we have seen in different circumstances. I'll take the East African market, for example. About 3-4 years ago, we didn't have VAT on transport, and then VAT on transport was introduced. Tanzania introduced it as well. So these regulations will obviously affect what you charge your product, yeah? What you call the price of your product. And then of course, demand and market structure. Pricing takes place after assessing all the factors related to target market. So you have to ask, what is your target market? The relationship between demand and price should be considered when deciding on a pricing strategy. It's very important that you understand the difference between your demand and price. And that's why I was also talking about the pricing elasticity. I always like to think, when I think of pricing elasticity, I think of a rubber band. You know how it stretches? So you've got to think of your product in that term. If I move it further on, what are the consequences? Yeah. If I look at the factors affecting this pricing strategy that I have picked, what are the consequences? Yeah. Will I be able to meet my costs so that I'm not making a loss? Okay. So, like I said, our approach today, we could go into the accounting side of that, yeah. As much as I'm a business studies student, we're not going to get into the math. We're looking at pricing from the point of view of consumer psychology, because once you understand your consumer, then you're able to offer the correct product, the correct pricing. We've spoken about strategies in the last 2 as we continue this 7 webinar part series, and we'll continue to just talk about strategies. So understanding consumer psychology in relation to pricing your products, where does that all fit in? So I'd like to read the statement on the screen. Setting pricing for tourism businesses is a strong mix of marketing strategy and financial analysis. And I like to highlight the marketing strategy and financial analysis because in the past we have spoken about data, yeah? One of the richest resource you have as a business is the data that you collect. Right now, yes, tourism is at a standstill, but you still have the data for the past few years you've been working with. And this data is what can be used to actually formulate your strategies. And it also gives you, when you've done your financial analysis, right now we're just from saying that your costs, yeah, which is finance, yeah, your costs of running your business should actually be considered as you build up on your price, yeah? So your marketing strategy and your financial analysis, both of these two will help you set up the best or suitable price for your product. So is there really a formula of developing pricing for tourism in businesses? I guess you've got to consider certain things. One of the things you have to consider is how unique is your business, how unique is your product. So then again, it goes back to product development, yeah? You have to think of what value added services do you provide, inclusive of the experience? Before we went down, one of the things, I think the two key things we were discussing in tourism was the experience and how do you meet the experience, yeah? Because we've seen different models of tourism come up, yeah? Different business models, people buying more online, yeah? So what value added services can you give, yeah? So that you are able to create that uniqueness for your product, yeah? Then what market do you want to attract? What positioning in the market do you want to establish? Because then again, you can't, it's easier to push something that you said, my focus is on the middle product, so that your focus is that market, yeah? So you're not going to go for the very expensive products or the budget ones. And if that's what you want, then you also have got to look at the positioning in the market, yeah? So how will you position your product? How will you position your business, yeah? Then, of course, we've discussed something to consider. We've discussed cost, operating costs, and this you've got to look at both fixed and variables, yeah? Then when I say fixed, I'm talking about certain things such as maybe rent, staff salaries. Think of the fixed, yeah, that you know every month, this is the cost I'm going to endure. For example, now one of the fixed that most of us are having is internet, yeah. We've got to go to have options if you're continuously working online, yeah. So that become now a fixed operating cost. So for most businesses, setting prices will be more market-based. What do competitors with similar products and services charge within your market? So these are things you must consider when you're deciding this is the pricing strategy I'm going with. I would also want to highlight that it doesn't mean if you're only going to pick promotional promotional strategy, that's the only pricing strategy that you will use. No, most of these strategies are actually combined. You can pick one to introduce, you know, when we spoke about an introductory one. So I'm going to introduce my product during not a peak period. Yeah, let's call it the low season. And during the low season, I'm going to hit the market with this price, and this price is the minimum for me to bear my fixed cost and variable costs. Then when it comes to peak season, I will raise my rate, yeah, my product rate by about 10%. And if I raise it by 10%, I'll be able to make a profit margin of this much. Yeah, so that's how you should think. And think of all these things that we're saying when you've got to consider when you're building that whole line. So in the process, you'll have used promotional strategy, and then you'll come and you'll have used another strategy. So most of these pricing strategies, you combine them, fitting the, of course, market time. You've spoken about the demand. So you won't necessarily just use one price, yeah? Pricing strategy, sorry. So understanding consumer psychology as it relates to pricing, yeah? We've spoken about the consumer. How do you understand the consumer? What does the consumer see when they see a price, yeah? So pricing should be viewed as a practical process with the ultimate aim of keeping your business afloat. In order to do that, you will need to understand the psychology of pricing. And in this instance, I want to introduce the marketing mix. There's usually what we call the 4 Ps in your marketing mix, and that is promotional, product, price, and place. So basically promotion, product looks at how you develop your product. Promotion is how do you move it into the market. Place is making sure that it is in the right place at the right time. And then there's price. Now, pricing is the only thing that brings revenue out of those 4 Ps in your marketing mix. So this is the one thing that you must get right. For you to be in business, you must get it right. So pricing is a concept that transcends profit margins. It's also a marketing tactic that can help you boost your business sales volume. So basically what we're saying is the approach that we are taking is that you're not just pricing, but we are also pricing for the sake of moving, boosting our business so that we can make sure there's a lot. So you need to choose numbers that will compel your audiences to buy. So if you're going to put up a price, it needs to be something that a client will look at and feel, yes, I am getting value. I am going to get the experience that I've been dreaming of. So I am naturally compelled. I am forced. I can feel it. And I'm like, you know what? I am going to purchase it. In my case, if you come to me, and I've always said very simple to, especially the hotels and the lodges, because I have 2 young ones. If I walk into a place where they say, we actually, or they tell me, my lodge gives options for children's meals, I'm sold for, because when you have a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, of course you want food that is mashed. I don't want to keep moving around with gadgets to mash my kids' foods because or keep telling the hotel staff, I need this, I need that. So that for me is always, I'm compelled to buy regardless what price you give me, because I know it gives me comfort in regards to my children. That means that holiday is sold for. So the numbers you choose should be able to compel your audience to buy. So we're going to look at some key things that that basically is like basis of consumer psychology in regards to pricing and how they buy. So one of the things is emphasize value. Number 1 is emphasize value and return on investment above cost. This basically means that instead of showing prospects what they should expect to spend, show them what they're going to earn. For example, if you send me, the example I'm just from telling you, if you give me something that makes sure my kids are catered for, it wouldn't matter what you charge me, because you've already met my, that thing that I want from that holiday. So if you are going to do an advert or you're sending me an itinerary, one of the things you should communicate to, I've told you, I am a family of 4. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. Ideally, that should speak into something, because when a customer even types out a request, most of them you'll see, especially if you're doing custom-made tours or custom-made, products, usually they'll type out and say, these are my needs, or I have, when they're explaining themselves, you should be able to read out and say, okay, I need to show them how they're going to earn or what they're going to get in return, so that we won't be discussing closing that sale because of cost, So cost is always relative in the eye of the beholder. Communicate return on investment first before cost becomes a consideration. If you're able to communicate results in terms of a clear value proposition, your cost will look much less expensive. So in that example where I said, I am a family of 4, there's 2 adults, there's 2 kids, and we're looking for a beach holiday. Give me your options. Ideally, I would hit that person with options for what the kids can do. So that means they can also have their time, because it's a holiday, it's a leisure holiday. That's what they're looking for, So if you communicate into, I can sort your kids, then you will appeal to them, So by the time you're coming to give your price, they'll be thinking, it's this much, but, my kids will get 1, 2, 3, 4, So because, and there's this very important quote, and I'll read it out, because a person's experience with a product tends to foster feelings of personal connection with it. Referring to time typically leads to more favorable attitudes and more purchases. So this is psychological, If you show someone you're saving them something, especially time, then they're more compelled to listen to what you're saying or what you're doing, yeah, or what you're giving them rather, yeah. So if you're showing me back to my my request, yeah, the request I'm asking for a holiday of 4 parks with 2 adults and 2 kids. So if you go back, say, showing me that, you remember what I said, my kids are taken care of, it means that probably my spouse and I can actually now go to the beach and explore something because there's a kids club in that beach resort or beach lodge or whatever it is. Then you've given me something more, yeah? So that foster of feelings, there's a personal connection to it. The second is be wary of comparative pricing. Consumers won't always go for the cheapest. And if you have seen the recent report by TripAdvisor, they actually say even post-pandemic, yeah, consumers may not necessarily be pushed to buy because you're giving the best price, no? So they may go for consumer brand, which seems like a less risky choice. So when you're talking about developing your strategies, you're talking about developing your brand, people will associate naturally with something they know than what they don't know. Or consumers may avoid making the purchase altogether, yeah? So implicit comparisons occur when a customer takes the initiative to compare 2 or more products. Explicit is when you take the opportunity to bring up what makes you different from the rest, yeah? I find sometimes it looks, you can do this in a good way, but sometimes it can also be cheesy because recently I was comparing the different online platforms to do webinars, yeah? And for a project. And then I went to one specific one and they had literally listed why they're the better option compared to the other one. And I was like, ideally, I don't think I would purchase them because they've listed why they're better than the other. But it would have been nice for them to give me a sense of connection on what they will do for me. And then I can figure it out by myself, yeah? The implicit comparison. The third approach or concept in regards to consumer psychology is avoid option overload. Pricing is a discipline where art meets science. What basically that means is that as tour operators, as lodge owners, as travel agents, we are compelled to give options when you're quoting. Option A, Emirates. Option B, Kenya Airways. Option C, Ethiopian Airways. Option C, that's fine, yeah? But if you give too much, then sometimes we close, yeah? And there's a quote from a software owner company that says, consumers constantly face analysis paralysis, where too many options actually result in no decision being made. So when it comes to pricing, less is actually more, yeah? Give me very clear-cut options, option A, B, C. Another thing is that you need to avoid when you think of option overload is when you're giving a package and you've literally put it down. Yes, 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 yes. In operations, I have experienced clients or travelers who've actually said, break down the price for me. But you don't have to break down per night, per day, per what, so that it's so much, and you've already given me option A, option B, option C, option D. What will happen is this, what we are calling analysis paralysis. I look at it and I'll be like, it's too much. And because it's too much, what do? You shut, yeah? And you move to the next offer. So you'll have lost something. So basically, when it comes to pricing, less is more, yeah? The fourth is price versus value. Is price a measure of value? Yeah. So I put this because I found this study, when I was looking at the different studies done in regards to price and value, I found this quite interesting because most of us assume that because something is more expensive, then it will probably give me more value, yeah? So there was a study done by Goldstein and team in 2008, and the study found that people do not derive more enjoyment from more expensive wine. They were looking at wine. Every time we go to buy wine, we tend to think the one that's really priced high will give us, will make us feel, we will taste richer, it will be better, but it's not always the same, yeah? So another study, when they were doing this case study, showed that there's a clear correlation between price and perceived value. And I want to highlight the word perceived value, yeah? To some extent, consumers are letting price influence how they feel about products and services. So again, going back to what we were saying and the survey that TripAdvisor have done, the recent one, you've got to think sometimes it's not because it's cheap, people will buy. People want to buy because of value, yeah? So you've got to understand, even when a client sends you an inquiry, really, what are they looking for? There's something they want to fill in. There's something that, there's a thirst. So if you can tap into that thirst, yeah, then price won't be the really, that perceived one we are talking about. So let's talk about tricks of the trade. Quick one in terms of pricing, yeah? One of the things is that we've seen it with online sites. You're going to buy a room at a specific hotel, and then you see 7 rooms remaining, 5 rooms remaining, 3 rooms remaining, yeah? That's what you call per customer limits, yeah? The language creates an illusion of a product is being a scarce resource. So that is something that I also recommend, yeah? In the years I was working in operations, if I want to close a sale, yeah, I don't want to make it in terms of, I will discount 5% for you. Then the client comes back and says, no, discount further. Then go back, I will discount. And by the time you're finishing, you're only making 5%. Yeah. So one of the things I would do is go back and say, hotel rooms are filling up. They've told us they only have 3 rooms available. Can I confirm your booking? Yeah. So that's a trick, yeah? When we speak of consumer psychology, you'll be feeling, because you've already seen there's interest, yeah? Then the second one is the power of 9. How many of us have seen even air tickets being sold for Nairobi to London, 799, 699? So apparently, 9 is what these are called the charm prices, yeah? And number 9 is like a lucky number when it comes to pricing, yeah? That's why I say this is a trick. You need to realize that when we read the digits, we read left digit effect, what you call the left digit effect, because you start reading from the left, yeah? So if I look at a price, $7.99, basically, I'll look at it as 7, as opposed to if they had written it as $8. So I'll likely buy this one that has 7.99 as opposed to the one priced at 8. Yeah. So we'll look at it as 7. It's basically we encode it in our minds before we read it. Yeah. So that's a trick that you can actually use when you're pricing. Yeah. So if you do a refresher, a quick one from what we've spoken about, you say, this is my strategy, this is the value, this is what I'm going in with the market, then you want your final price to have that 99, yeah? Then the third is math. I like to say humans have a short attention span. Because if you give a price, and I've seen this one especially with maybe flight options, that you give somebody and you say the cost will be 825.67, whatever, yeah? It will look so big to me, yeah? So it's easier for you to actually say, the sign might say the original cost was $10 and now now is 8 instead of 7.97. So you'll actually think $8 is cheaper, as opposed to if the sign was reading $10, from $10 to 7.97. Yet 7.97 would be cheaper, yeah? So basically easy math, because we have short attention spans, and then again, we are busy thinking, if I'm buying a holiday, my focus is on value, yeah? So that is another trick that you can actually use. The fourth, usually this one is for the marketing strategies, yeah? Reduced font. Nobody wants to see a price in bold and it is in red in a quotation, yeah? The theory is that human minds connect physical magnitude to numerical magnitude. So if it is huge, I'm not a psychologist, but studies have basically shown that if you put your number in bold and huge, bigger text than what your value is, then that ideally will also put off people. So if we basically take a breather and look at what are our key takeaways when you look at when you look at pricing your product and your services in tourism, where do you start and where do you go? So one of the things I would look at as key takeaways is that pricing is more than just the numbers. Number one, you need to understand your consumers, yeah? Number two, simplify the user experience as much as possible, yeah? You remember when we spoke about avoiding very many options there, the information overload? So that's one of the things that you want to simplify, make it easy. Yeah, if you have taken that promotional strategy that we spoke about and you're making this price as the entry point, then make it easy for me to understand. Then remember that pricing is all about context. Your approach to pricing goes hand in hand with your company's marketing strategy. Remember the 4 Ps. If you work with your marketing mix, this is my product, I've developed, say, a sustainable product, my promotion strategy is going to be this, and that, and then I am going to make sure it is in the market this way. And lastly, my price is going to be this, because I feel that, I have assessed what the competition in the market is. I have assessed what is out there. I have assessed all that. Then you'll be able to give a price that meets this, what we said is more than the numbers. It is value. It's simplified in terms of user pricing, the context. So you've gone a way to just fit in all your prices through your marketing strategy. Then you put it together. The first week, I think we spoke about communication strategies. Then we spoke about last week about business strategies and different approaches that you can use to promote your company, promote your products. Then to this way, we're also now talking about your pricing strategy, yeah? Caroline, I think I would like to end it there and throw it back to you. It was nice having you, and you can shoot any questions that you have, and let us help you build your business, build your products, using the right prices, using the right effect in terms of psychology, so that you can actually make a business, you can actually make money, yeah? And if most of you know me, I like the topic of money, and that's why we're in business, to make money. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you so much, Angela. It was really, really insightful. I've actually noticed that when you went back to, what was it? When companies use when you see the number of rooms going down when you're booking a room, I have fallen for that so many times. So it's really interesting to see the different strategies that companies can use for their pricing. So I can see a comment first from Tina. She's been thinking a lot about her pricing strategies and making it easier for customers to understand, to provide easy math for the customers. So I want to just open up the webinar for any questions that you may have for Angela. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and just ask, or if your microphones are not working, you can just type on the chat and I can read them out, or Angela can answer them directly. Patricia, I see your microphone is unmuted. Do you have a question for Angela? Or Nikos or Yvonne? So Lillian is asking, what can we do as a destination to attract more travelers and not opting for other destinations?
Caroline, just repeat that, please. Sorry.
Lillian is asking, what can we do as a destination to attract more travelers so that they don't opt for other destinations?
I think when we spoke about communication strategies, I said the reason why this 7-part webinar series picked communication as the first one is because we need to start communicating the value of our destinations. Very many times we've spoken about sustainability, inclusiveness in your products. What value are you giving to the local community hosts? One of the things we've seen that in the different reports we've been getting in terms of consumer behavior, in terms of traveler changing behaviors that we'll expect, especially after this period, is that they will be wanting value. Yeah. One of the things as a sustainability ambassador is that this pandemic has taught people, you know, every time we would speak about climate change and the effects, then now people start to say, you realize when we get to climate change, it will be worse. Yeah. So when you're talking about a sustainable product that looks at carbon, that measures carbon footprint, or you have ways of carbon offsetting, and this is a destination, you want to use that value, communicate the value, and then people will see the need to come to your destination. You can imagine after this pandemic, the whole world will be fighting to bring in travelers to their destination. I say right now, the destination that positions themselves as the #1 in terms of value, basing it on the sustainability piece, environment, that's the planet, and the people. It's local people. Then many travelers will resonate with that, because now what this pandemic has done is that it has tapped into our human effect. You know that feeling that we keep talking about, yeah? People will actually start to ask, if I go to this destination, what do they do for the local people? Yeah, I've seen very rich conversations at the moment in Kenya about the local communities in the reserves and how are they surviving through this pandemic without tourism. Yeah, when you look at Kenya, we always talk about the Maasais, for example, in the Mara Reserve. Yeah, and there's been fears of, you know, with this pandemic, this destination could be affected through wildlife loss because people will resort to poaching as an alternative to make an income. But my question is, can you imagine if we had included this community in seeing the value and the importance of protecting the wildlife from the word go? Would we have this problem? No. So the thing is this, yeah, communicate value, develop value. Caroline?
Thank you so much, Angela. And then I can see also another question from Tina. She's asking, what is the best answer to give a client who feels their prices are very high, even though they're looking for VIP or luxury services?
Hi, Tina. Previously, we've always spoken about communicating value. I just spoke about it now, yeah? So when a client comes to you, everybody wants to bargain, yeah? But never boost your itinerary or place your itinerary in terms of we're negotiating costs. This actually goes to the guys who sell air tickets. There's something we call a service fee that we charge. I have never seen anybody walk into a supermarket and ask the supermarket attendant, how much are you making out of this bread? Yeah. Tourism needs to move away from communicating their earnings. Because I've seen us go like, you know, I've given you a 5% discount. That is the best way I can go. No. When a client says, give me a discount, then you want to show them they will lose in terms of experience. So for example, you were selling a package and you had put your package consist of game drives, walking safaris, what are they called? Naturalist education, community. Then you can start saying, sadly, our product involves this and you will get that for this much. If you reduce this, then this is, you know, show them that they're actually losing out from what they want. Yeah. So if you communicate, because they want, if you want a high value product, yeah, you should be willing to pay for it because you understand that this goes to that. But if you want high value and you want to pay cheap, then you tell them, sadly, the package cannot remove, we cannot remove the entity of communities, or we are not going to remove the entity of your nature safari. So if
Hi, Angela. The microphone just went off a little bit. Could you repeat from removing the entity of the community?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, you need to communicate. Caroline, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Good. So I was saying to Tina, you need to communicate. If they want less, then they should expect less. Yeah. But you do it in a professional, profound, diligent manner, in a nice way. But you just say, if you're going to remove this entity, then you won't have this. Yeah. A funny example, because it's not even in African context, is if you look at how Dubai sells their packages, they have very cheap packages, yeah? But your package will only consist of your accommodation and maybe the desert safari drive, yeah? But when you start saying, I want to see that, I want to see that, the price just keeps going up, 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 up. So with such a client, then the strategy you should probably use, you remember when we were talking about the optional one? So that you tell them, if you want this much, this is all you're going to get. But if you want this much, this is what you're going to get. A, B, C, D. But cheap is only A. Yeah. So that you're not saying no, but you're telling them, yeah, you know, if you want this, that's all you're going to get. Caroline?
Thank you so much, Angela. I can see two more questions. So there's one from Julia. She's asking, how can you look at the status of should you look at the status of a client to determine price, or should pricing cut across everyone?
I think by the time you're sending a price, later on we'll be looking at, I believe among the webinars, the series will be looking at consumer behaviors. Once a client sends to you an inquiry, the first thing I've always said you need to do is build a persona. You want to build an avatar of what your client looks like. So if they're talking about this I want to stay in this, I expect that, then already it speaks to you and tells you something. Another thing we've always done, or rather I've always done when it comes to operations, if a client is from this region, for example, what do they expect? Yeah. If I'm in Kenya and I am looking at a client who is from Uganda or Rwanda, I already know that the analytics, the data shows that majority of the Ugandans and the Rwandese come to Kenya for a beach experience. Yeah. So when I'm pricing, I'll be thinking of that. So to answer your question, yes, you must analyze your client. Yeah. You don't have to go to them and say, what are you earning or what is your background? But you can ask, how much is your budget? Yeah, because the budget will be able to help you develop that avatar of your client, and you can see what their needs are. Then it will be easier for you to put forth a product with a price that actually meets the client's expectation. Caroline?
Hi, Angela. Thank you. I have actually 2 more questions apart from Julia's. So there's so many messages coming in. Okay, so from Yvonne, I think Maureen had a question, but I can't find it anymore. Alison has a question asking, how can we incentivize customers to book a tour or travel product, even if there's uncertainty on international travel?
I think when you look at uncertainties, yeah, we discussed what you call the uncertainty matrix, and we said you have to work with the uncertainty matrix to be able to determine the current state in regards to your products, in regards to your business. Yeah. So if you look at the model of incentivizing, that approach is used to just attract, yeah? And then you expect them to stay. So I'm trying to think of a circumstance, a good circumstance in regards to incentivizing, because at the moment, when you do the, let's go back to the uncertainty matrix, yeah? You'll be able to tell, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, this is what I think I know. So you're able to see an idea of how long it will take. Then we also spoke about the different phases of the pandemic, yeah? So Alison, when you look at the different phases of the pandemic, at what point do you start telling the client, come and buy my product now? Yeah, because there's a lot of, how do I put it? There's no guarantee that things will get better. There's no guarantee, because right now it's a fluid situation. So the most you can do in terms of communicating to your traveler is probably just offer the value of the destination and work with why you're better than the other one, as opposed to saying, I'm offering you something for you to come. Yeah, because you also have to think in terms of business strategies, is it sustainable or is it not? Yeah. So value, I think value proposition again is important when you're trying to convince or you're trying to promote for travelers to come to your destination or to buy your product. Then that way, like I said, I think the pandemic has spoken to us in terms of human effects. Alison, if I was to give you an example of Kenya, Kenya has always had challenges when it comes to, say, terrorism attacks because of where Kenya is positioned, yeah? Then geographically, that is. And then the second has always been if there's politics, then you see the curve of tourists go up and down. And the challenge I've always seen, or rather the stand I've always seen, both government and private sector, is what can we do to incentivize the tourists to come, yeah? But I've always said there are certain nations, if you look at, they've had even coups happen, but the tourism is not necessarily that affected. But these destinations speak value, yeah? What do you get from that? We're in an age where we talk about experience, yeah? So how does that experience conform to the uncertainty, yeah? How does it relate? You know that there's this risk, however, this is what you will be getting. So I think really that's the line I would take. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Angela. I think we can conclude the webinar at this moment, but from all the messages I'm seeing, it's been very valuable for them. And I also just want to say a quick thank you to you for sharing your expertise, and also to all of you who have managed to join the training. Thank you so much for your time. Any other questions that I see, I will post to Angela via email, and then we'll be able to send them out to you when we send the webinar recording and the presentation slides. So thank you once again, and have a very good weekend to all of you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Caroline. You're out here.